Hello and welcome to 10 Billion Talks, the podcast where we dive into the biggest challenges our world is facing and how we can make a difference together in our lifetime. I am Shannon, your host, and today we are joined by Daniel Ajudeonu, a youth leader spearheading projects on global security and nuclear nonproliferation. Let's start by learning more about you. So, Daniel, why don't you tell us more about yourself?
Thank you very much, Shannon. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast today. As you know me, I'm Daniel. I am Nigerian, proudly black. I'm proud of my identity. And I currently serve as a leadership team member at International Student Young Progress, where we work in global security issues that are the nexus of science, technology, society, and ethics. Over there, I also coordinate external partnerships and I lead the Africa project, which is focused on capacity building for young Africans on nuclear disarmament and peaceful nuclear applications. Also, I serve as the next generation advisory committee member for the European Leadership Network project on protecting the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, where we are working to develop recommendations over the current review cycle of the 11th Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference, which comes up in 2026. And previously, I was an ambassador, a global ambassador for the Office of the Future Generations Commissioner for Wales and Foundations for Tomorrow. We worked in promoting future generations governance globally. And I also previously served as the Deputy Partnerships Coordinator at the Youth for the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, where we worked to accelerate and put out there youth voices against a world full of nuclear weapons. And in 2022, we organized the first youth meeting of state parties to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons in Vienna. It was an amazing experience because that summit coordinated in a policy presentation on nuclear risk reduction strategies to the main meeting of state parties. So that is a brief background of me. And also on the sidelines there, aside nuclear issues, peace, security, development issues, I also am the founder of Whole Men's Caucus, where we are working to promote male honors in societies around the world and, changing the narrative from the traditional notions of toxic masculinity to love, care, and affection for the female folk. And
Wow, you've told us a lot about yourself, and the work you're doing is obviously extremely interesting. So let's dive into it one by one. And the first thing you talked about
mhm.
was your work with youth against nuclear weapons and on global security. So tell us, how do you get involved in all these peace activities and nuclear disarmament in the first place?
Since I was very young, in fact, since I was in secondary school, I have always been passionate about living an impactful life, making an impact in the public society. And I've been curious about how I could make a real world difference with my life and not just my career, because in my mentor and the person of Dr. Miles Monroe of blessed memories, I get to know about him even actually after he's dead. But one word that he always mentioned that struck with me is the need for every individual to live a purpose-driven life, and that was a striking inspiration for me. And so I was curious about how I could play a role in the society that I found myself, especially given the various global challenges at the time. But I never knew how to go about it, right? So the very, very striking year was 2020 during COVID-19. It was an opportunity for me to delve into capacity building and personal development. So during that period, I took almost 50 online courses from various institutions across the world to improve myself as a person and professionally. But I never knew the direction that I would want to take. I was just trying to develop myself, and all that. And after that, in 2021, I was selected for Quaker United Nations Summer School, where, we were immersed in the workings of the United Nations and the multilateral system. After that, I told myself, Daniel, you have a role to play here. And I found purpose. I found inspiration to pursue a career focused on peace and security issues. Then also during the period, I took some courses with Amnesty International on digital security and human rights, and also with the United States Institute of Peace, where I took a course on conflict analysis. So those were really formative periods for me, and from there, I continued to expand my knowledge and my desire to create a difference in the world kept on increasing and increasing. But I never knew what I still wanted to do until I came across the effective altruism community, which exposed me deeper to the salience of global security and the salience of nuclear security. And I decided to pursue or focus on a long-term career solving existential risk or reducing global catastrophic risk, and of course, one of which is nuclear weapons. So that was those were critical foundations for where I find myself today. I hope that is helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great actually, because you told us a bit how you got involved in all these activities and also managed to tell us about how some experiences were formative for your life and shaped you. And I know that in your introduction, you told us that you're a very proud Nigerian, very proud man, and a proud male, actually. So, what are some of the formative experiences that you think growing up in Nigeria has formed the way you see the world?
Let me start from my career experiences, one of which is the Kuka United Nations Summer School, of course, which I've talked about, because that helped me broaden my network, interact with experts who were working in global peace, security, and sustainable development issues. I found inspiration. When I got engaged with the effective altruism community, I was able to receive advising from 80,000 hours. I would always thank my advisor, Habiba Islam. She's a wonderful person. And that was connected with experts around the world who could provide, further insight to me on how I could pursue a career in the field. And, they were very helpful, super helpful, provided insights and advising and, shared resources with me. I think those were really formative for me because it helped me deepen my knowledge in nuclear issues. And I also took, a course in nuclear issues, during that period, which was really helpful for my, professional development. And let me also talk about my personal formative experiences. Growing up in Nigeria has given me a perspective about the world, which is this. Let's be content with what we have. There need not be strife in order to achieve success as a country. There need not be invasion of another country. I think that those are, to some extent, associated with toxic masculinity. Permit me to say that. I think that if the leaders of the world today can imagine that they can live peacefully side by side, pursuing their interests without intimidating other countries, I think that the world would be a better place. So as a Nigerian, I am contented within my country. I'm happy that my country is not seeking to bring down any other country to become successful or achieve economic might and what have you. So those really give me the perspective of be satisfied with what you have. Peace is the only way to prosperity, and how I wish that all leaders of the world would have a similar perspective. Then secondly, my failures have defined me. I know that sounds vulnerable and kind of weird, but I have actually not achieved the results I wanted to achieve on certain occasions in my lifetime. But those periods were really low periods for me as an individual, and I felt at the end of the day, there was light at the tunnel. So I think those have been amazing experiences. And that has given me the confidence that despite what one may be going through at certain points in time in life, you just need to be hopeful. It's not easy. I have achieved negative results or results I hadn't wanted to achieve on several occasions. But in the end, I'm glad about, what the outcome was. And I've also learned that beyond character, there's no longevity. The world would never give you what you desire or what you deserve. Winners are those who never give up.
That's great. You've given me so many wonderful quotes from that one answer you gave. Like, I love how you said that peace is the only way to prosperity, and winners are those who never give up, which I completely agree. And on the topic of peace, we're speaking on 10 billion talks, and 10 billion talks is a part of 10 billion, a global platform to overcome international coordination problems that are holding us back from making progress in the world. How do you think 10 billion could be of interest to the African youth in particular?
One thing that I find striking about 10 billion, and like this is what I'll summarize my answer. It's an amazing platform where not just African youth, but youth around the world can find inspiration and potential collaborators to create the change that I want to see in the world. I'm like, that is just it.
Thank you, Daniel. You've told us so much about growing up in Nigeria and how it has shaped your life. And I know that maybe our listeners don't know much about Nigeria, even though it's one of the most important countries in Africa. So tell me, what do you think people get wrong about Nigeria?
One very critical development globally, which I don't think it's pleasing to hear. I don't think it's pleasing to experience, is the negative perception of people about Nigeria, that Nigerians are criminals, that Nigerians are bad. Probably because out there in the popular media, majority of the information about Nigeria has all been about, or mostly about, negative happenings in Nigeria, corruption, poverty, and yeah. But I think that is very, very unfair by the popular media. It's so sad that even carrying around the Nigerian passport in other parts of the world, it's very easy for people to suspect you to be a potential criminal. Sometimes Nigerians are denied visas on baseless basis. Sometimes they tell you, we're not sure you're going to return to your country. I'm like, we love our country. Those are false opinions, right? I think that those are very, very, very false narratives that, that has been, first of all, or majorly portrayed by the popular media, and people get to buy into this such bias. However, I give you a very simple example. Check the rate of people who just stepped out at random and began to shoot sporadically or randomly at innocent people. Check the rate of that in the US, check the rate of that in Nigeria. It's very high in the US, but nobody comes out and say the US is bad. There are bad people in the US, but people would say there are bad people in Nigeria. Is it because probably Nigeria is not a first world country? I think that is very unfair. Nigerians, I would tell you the truth, are lovely people, amazing people, caring people. I have friends, thanks to God from the global north, who do not share a negative perception about Nigeria. And I think that the popular media needs to become more conscious about changing that narrative. And to everyone listening, if there's a country that you don't want to miss traveling to in your lifetime, it is Nigeria. Our culture, our food, the warmth of the people, you just don't want to mix that.
Let's move on to a lighter topic. What is a book that you would recommend to our listeners who are listening to our conversation today?
A number of books. The first, because I work in nuclear risk reduction, there's a perfect book by Daniel Ajudeonu of blessed memories, The Doomsday Machine: Confessions of a Nuclear War Planner. I think that's a fascinating book. You get to, hear life stories, real stories of how the nuclear war was planned. But thank God it never manifested, right? So you get to learn about thrilling experiences that could have defined our future as humanity in a negative way. But glad that it never occurred. Another is A Purpose-Driven Life by requiring Finishing Stronger by Steve Farrar as well. Those are three, really major books that have really inspired me in life and that I would recommend for anyone. And another is The Precipice by Toby Odd. I think that's also a fantastic book. I think one amazing thing about these books is that, like, first of all, for the ones in nuclear issues and The Precipice, it gets to expose you to the reality of the present day world that we live in. Yeah, advancements in technology, which brings about some ease in lifestyle, some ease in the way we do things as humans, but at the same time has brought about some associated terrible risks that could annihilate us all, that could prevent our children's children and future generations from achieving the life of their dreams. And if we are not careful, while we are enjoying the benefits of advanced technologies, we may one day stumble upon their potential negative consequences, which would be unfavorable for us all.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Daniel. I've got a couple more questions for you. So
Sure.
I know you've talked about how much you care about having hope despite all the failures that you faced, and despite how everything that people are going through in life, they need to remain hopeful. And on the topic of hope and dreams, what is your dream for one major change at the international level within your lifetime?
A world where there are no nuclear weapons. the total elimination of nuclear weapons and all other weapons of mass destruction. I think that would be the greatest gift that the international system would give to me during my lifetime. Yeah.
That's good. You have faith. If you want something to happen, you go for it, you make it happen. And I believe that the power lies in your hands. Your hands, my hands, the hands of the youth, basically, which is why we're getting all the youth involved in 10 billion. Well, Daniel, you've told us so much about the stuff you're doing, your hopes for the future, and I'm sure our listeners will want to read the books that you've just recommended. I personally would, so maybe I'll go to the bookstore after this.
Sure.
For those who want to get involved, why don't you tell us how our listeners can get involved with your work?
One of the perfect ways to get involved with our work, for example, at International Student Young Progress, I encourage you to go to our website, www.isyp.org, and subscribe to our newsletters. We share information, verified talent opportunities, and how young people could engage in the field. Follow us on Twitter, on LinkedIn as well, just at International Student Young Progress, and you get to see some very relevant posts and opportunities to get involved in the field from us. And periodically, we also unfold activities, through which we could get involved, conferences, workshops, and as such. And just so far, you following us on our social media platforms, you would get knowledge about this. And for my work as at home and caucus, which I think will be relevant for all men listening, right? Just follow us on our social media platforms as well, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn, just at home and caucus, And I also encourage you to share content with your loved ones, especially the male folks. They are very much inspiring. And finally, I invite you to join me in spreading the word about the negative consequences of nuclear weapons. They are immoral, they are dangerous, they are disastrous. They don't need to be existent on our world. So we need to tell that to our local leaders, our national leaders, and the global leaders that they must eliminate nuclear weapons. And I think that way we all can contribute to a world, where there are no nuclear weapons. These are my very last words. I want to tell everyone out there that the fact that you failed once doesn't mean that you're a failure in life. The fact that you're not getting the results you desire right now doesn't mean that you would never get them. Keep on doing the right thing. Keep on doing the right thing. Keep on developing yourself. And do not let your happiness depend on other people or the perspectives of other people. Provided that you're doing and you're rooting for only what is right. And lastly, the world may not become a better place, but your little actions in your little corners could create a sporadic and a ripple effect, which could make the world a better place. And thank you very much. Because there is God, because young people exist, and because we young people see the world differently and have different and somewhat also better aspirations for the world that we desire to live in than older generations, I think that the future of the world could be better than we perceive right now. Thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for your time, Daniel. I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot from you and will definitely want to get involved with your work and the work of 10 billion. This concludes our episode of 10 Billion Talks. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe for more and consider sharing it with your friends. And of course, getting involved. 10 billion dreams, one extraordinary future.